The hearing will come to order. Good morning. The committee meets today to consider the nomination of Lieutenant General Stephen Nordhaus for promotion to general and to be the chief of the National Guard Bureau, and the nomination of Vice Admiral Alvin Holsey for promotion to admiral and to be commander of U.S. Southern Command. General Nordhaus, congratulations on your nomination. I would like to thank your family and loved ones who have supported your service and are proudly watching right now. Admiral Holsey, I would like to welcome your wife, Stephanie, thank you, and your son, Jordan, soon to be Dr. Holsey, and also recognize that your eldest son, Lieutenant Commander-Select Joshua Holsey, could not be here today because he's preparing for an upcoming deployment. We thank him for his service and wish him luck. Thank you. Let me also recognize outgoing leaders at the National Guard Bureau and Southern Command. General Daniel Hokanson recently retired as Chief of the National Guard Bureau after 38 years of distinguished service to the nation. General Hokanson led the National Guard through one of the most consequential periods in its history, and we are grateful for his steady hand. I would also like to thank General Laura Richardson as she prepares for retirement after nearly 4 decades in the Army. She has led Southern Command with skill and distinction, and our forces there are postured for success thanks to her leadership. General Nordhaus, you are well qualified to serve as Chief of the National Guard Bureau, or NGB. A fighter pilot by training, you have led airmen and soldiers at every level, including in your current post as Commander of Continental U.S. NORAD, and previous command of 1st Air Force and leadership as Director of Operations and Logistics for the NGB Joint Staff. If confirmed, you will serve on the Joint Chiefs of Staff as the Principal Advisor to the Secretary of Defense and the Chief of Staff of the Army and the Air Force on matters related to the National Guard. This is a challenging but important time for the National Guard. The Guard has always been our military's core combat reserve force, especially over the past 2 decades, and its warfighting capabilities will continue to be relied upon. Right now, there are tens of thousands of National Guard soldiers and airmen mobilized around the world carrying out vital missions. At the same time, the National Guard's role on American soil is also more important than ever, and its leaders must be thoughtful about how the force is used and resourced. In particular, the National Guard's civil support missions are becoming more complicated. Responding to natural disasters such as hurricanes, wildfires, tornadoes, and flooding, as well as health and humanitarian crises like COVID-19, often require the skills, manpower, and logistics that only the National Guard can provide. Such challenges will continue to strain local communities and authorities, and the National Guard will have a critical role to play in responding to them. General Nordhaus, I would like to know your thoughts on the proper employment and limits of using the National Guard in support of civilian authorities, including when it is operating in either a state or federal status. In addition, you will be responsible for improving the National Guard's recruiting and retention strategies. The Guard has fared better than the active components in this regard, but the recruiting environment continues to be historically challenging. I would like to know how you would address this issue, especially in regard to retaining highly skilled personnel with transferable civilian training. Turning to Southern Command, Admiral Holsey, you bring 36 years of experience as a naval aviator to this position. You have served at sea and ashore across the globe and at every level of leadership. Your current position as military deputy commander of SOUTHCOM and previous experience, including as commander of Carrier Strike Group 1, will serve you well. If confirmed as commander of SOUTHCOM, you will be facing growing challenges from China and Russia in Latin America. The political and economic instability in the region presents a situation that our adversaries are seeking to exploit to increase their own influence. China, in particular, is expanding its presence in the region, including through investments in strategic infrastructure, such as the Port of Balboa in Panama, 5G telecommunications, and an expanding network of space tracking installations. Admiral, I'm interested in your assessment of the challenge from near-peer competitors in Latin America and how we might work strategically with our partners in the region to build resilience against these activities. Further, we know that violence and economic problems are contributing to the instability in the SOUTHCOM area of responsibility. In particular, Venezuela's President Maduro's failure to provide transparency following the July general election has thrown his nation into greater political and economic chaos. And earlier this spring, The deteriorating security conditions in Haiti prompted the U.S. forces to augment security at the U.S. Embassy in Port-au-Prince and evacuate non-essential personnel. Finally, transnational criminal activity and corruption continue to harm other areas, especially in the Northern Triangle countries of Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador. Admiral, I would like to know your views on what more can be done to help improve the situation and strengthen security throughout the region. Gentlemen, these complex challenges will require the full complement of your skills. Thank you for your willingness to continue your service and lead the nation, particularly the National Guard and Southcom, at this critical moment. I look forward to your testimonies. Let me now recognize Ranking Member Senator Wicker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank our witnesses for being here today. You've already recognized family members, but I do want to congratulate Vice Admiral Halsey on persuading a young lady from Claiborne County to be his bride some years ago. Admiral Halsey, as the Deputy Commander at Southcom, you know as well as anyone how effective the Chinese Communist Party has become in the region. The CCP has been engaging in predatory economic and diplomatic practices in the region, threatening our interests there. Our neighbors to the south rightly seek economic security for their people. The Chinese exploit this goal by aggressively lobbying leaders across the hemisphere, peddling dubious promises of infrastructure, local job creation. Instead of honoring their promises, they often follow through with predatory practices. The CCP leaves those nations worse off by constructing infrastructure exclusively with Chinese labor and by creating facilities that are either poorly built or incomplete. Simultaneously, through its state-owned enterprises, China sets conditions to enhance its military presence, gather intelligence, and attempt to limit U.S. access and influence. This July, the Center for Strategic and International Studies published a report in which they outlined no fewer than 4 separate Chinese electronic surveillance operations on the island of Cuba. These operations may even be able to collect signals intelligence well into U.S. territory. This summer, the Russian Navy sent warships and submarines to exercise with the Cuban Navy. In other words, great power competition is happening right here in the Americas. Now is the time for us to enhance our relationships and economic investment with our southern neighbors. Yet our current approach is failing. Southcom has continued to rely primarily on security assistance and cooperation, which is prohibitively expensive. It's time to use capital investments to achieve national security goals in this theater. Traditionally, we have not thought of investment strategy as a tool in DoD's belt, but it can be highly effective when properly employed, and you and I have discussed this. We should use it more frequently to promote U.S. influence and defense interests, and Southcom can lead the way. It should work with entities such as the DoD's Office of Strategic Capital, the Development Finance Corporation, and the Export-Import Bank. Their collaboration could pair U.S. private capital with strategic investment opportunities in the region, yielding economic and national security benefits for the United States. Admiral Halsey, I look forward to hearing how you intend to change Southcom's approach so it can do a better job of countering the malign influence of our adversaries and expand U.S. credibility in the region. Now, Lieutenant General Nordhaus, if confirmed to serve as the Chief of the National Guard Bureau, you will be the principal advisor to the Secretary of Defense on National Guard matters. The National Guard experiences constant tension between its federal and state missions. The federal government provides the vast majority of funds for the National Guard, and it's entitled to set the terms and conditions for how those resources are used. In addition, the National Guard performs vital tasks for local communities, but these services cannot come at the expense of the Guard's military readiness responsibilities. If confirmed, perhaps your most challenging task will be striking a balance between these often competing federal and state missions. These competing priorities have led to avoidable conflict only recently. The National Guard cannot be the solution to every local labor shortage. In two extreme examples, some governors have used the National Guard to drive school buses and staff nursing homes. These decisions erode military readiness, and they improperly take service members away from their families and their civilian employment, not to mention their statutory mission. If confirmed, I expect you to use your influence to ensure the National Guard personnel are properly focused on readiness and used appropriately to support the Department of Defense and our nation in times of emergency or conflict. Finally, I would like to congratulate the 155th Armored Brigade Combat Team of the Mississippi Army National Guard on a successful deployment. They took command of the Joint Multinational Training Group Ukraine, located in Germany, and had responsibility for training and mentoring the Ukrainian armed forces. This mission remains critical to our national security, and I'm proud of the Mississippi National Guard for conducting such an important role, and I felt I should mention it this morning. So thank both of you for being here. I look forward to a very interesting hearing. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator Wicker. General Nordhaus, you are recognized.
Chairman Reed, Ranking Member Wicker, and distinguished members of the committee, I am truly honored to be here, and thank you for your longstanding support of the mission and men and women of the National Guard. I also want to thank President Biden, Secretary Austin, and General Brown for their trust and confidence in nominating me to be the next chief of the National Guard Bureau. I am privileged to testify alongside Vice Admiral Halsey, an incredible officer and teammate. I'd also like to recognize General Hokanson and his wife Kelly for their enduring impact they left on the National Guard. I would not be here today if it were not for my family, and I would like to recognize them for their sacrifices they've made to allow me to do what I love. My wife Shannon is the love of my life, the rock of our family, and my faithful spouse for over 35 years. Her commitment and advocacy for family and soldiers and airmen who serve has been nothing short of amazing. Together we have 5 children, 6 grandchildren, and 430,000 guardsmen we consider family. Shannon is the oldest daughter of Paul and Brenda Lawrence. Paul is a retired air traffic controller who served in Southeast Asia during Vietnam. My father, Don, served in the Navy. He, along with my mom, Sandy, are responsible for my passion and love of flying and joining the Air Force. Our son, Clay, is a captain in the Space Force, and the others are patriots in their own way. Whitney is the oldest, and Luke are working within their communities. Our twins, Noah and Austin, are currently attending college, studying business and music at the universities of Dayton and Michigan. Over the past 35 years, I've been shaped by incredible leaders and service members who I've served with at home and abroad during multiple U.S. and coalition deployments. I've held 5 commands, served at NORAD and U.S. NORTHCOM, and on the NGB staff as Director of Ops and Logistics. I have served both in the active duty and the National Guard as a traditional guardsman, a temporary technician, and an active guardsman. These unique leadership experiences have made me acutely aware of the security challenges we face and the tough decisions ahead. I come to you today at an important time in our nation's history, with the rise of strategic competitors, a complex geopolitical environment, and roughly 42,000 National Guard soldiers and airmen engaged globally. We face persistent threats both in the homeland and abroad, and the next chief of the National Guard Bureau must work closely with the 54 states, territories, and the District of Columbia, as well as with the services, the Joint Force, and our allies and partners to meet these challenges. In this vein, I believe the State Partnership Program is critical to our success and makes us stronger together and stronger tomorrow. If confirmed, I will ensure the National Guard airmen and soldiers are manned, trained, and equipped to continue to meet any mission anywhere. I will work tirelessly with this committee and all the stakeholders to defend our nation. I firmly believe the National Guard is an elite and ready warfighting force, serving as the primary combat reserve to the United States Army and Air Force, providing robust capability, capacity, and strategic and operational depth. This investment serves as a force multiplier, enabling the National Guard to concurrently respond to our community's needs while serving under the control of the governors and the military needs during times of conflict. You have my solemn promise to maintain an open line of communication with this committee and Congress. For the last 388 years, the incredible men and women of the National Guard have risen to every challenge and proven themselves on the battlefield and in our communities. They are and always will be my highest priority. They must balance their military careers, their family careers, their civilian careers, so we can keep our promise as Americans to be always ready and always there. In closing, I would like to thank you again for this opportunity to be before this committee. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, General. Admiral Halsey, please.
Chairman Reed, Ranking Member Wicker, and distinguished members of the committee, I'm honored and humbled to appear before you today as the nominee to lead United States Southern Command. I'd like to thank President Biden, Secretary Austin, and General Brown for their trust and confidence. I'm honored to testify alongside Lieutenant General Nordhaus as the National Guard State Partnership Program is a key enabler when it comes to building partner nation capability and capacity throughout the region. I'd also like to recognize and thank General Richardson, the current Southcom commander, and her husband Jim for their loyal and dedicated 70-plus years of service to our nation. General Richardson's guidance to Southcom and the impact she has made in the region has been inspiring. If confirmed, I will build on our efforts and work across the whole of government, our allies and partners to ensure we address security challenges and expand opportunities to truly realize Southcom's vision of a secure, free, and prosperous Western Hemisphere. I'd like to thank my family for their love and support throughout my military career. With me today is my wife of 34 years, Stephanie, and our young son, Jordan. Stephanie is my best friend, a wonderful mother, an educator turned dentist who is practicing 5 states based off our multiple moves as a family. Our oldest son, Joshua, could not be here today. He's charting his own path in naval aviation and is preparing for an upcoming deployment. Together, we have a combined 45 years of service, and I like to think that we've made a difference. Jordan is in his 3rd year at the University of Virginia Medical School, conducting his clinicals at Nova Fairfax. I cannot be prouder of the young men they have become. I also like to thank my parents, the late Charles Halsey Sr., an engineer, and my mother, Rosa Halsey, a retired educator. They raised 4 sons and taught us the importance of faith, family, education, and service. My father served in the Army during the Korean War, and his 3 brothers all served in the Navy. Go Navy. The 3 of my mother's 4 brothers served in the Army during Vietnam. Service is not just what we do, it is who we are as a family. My first deployment to Southcom Air Responsibility was over 33 years ago, conducting counter-drug missions flying off a Knox-class frigate. But this region, our neighborhood, is so much more. It's on the front line of strategic competition. Most focus to the east and west when they think of great power competition. But a look to our south reveals that our adversaries have established a strong presence, jeopardizing security, stability across the Americas. The PRC and Russia are strategic competitors who seek to undermine democracy while gaining power and influence in the region. Transnational criminal organizations create and exploit the permissive environment, undermining the rule of law and disrupting legitimate government functions. Additionally, transboundary threats demand our attention as well, from irregular migration, climate change, eroding democracies, to food and water insecurities. Our time is now. If we don't take deliberate and meaningful steps over the next 5 to 10 years, this region will change forever. To be clear, partnerships are our best deterrents to countering shared security and economic concerns. And for now, we remain the trusted partner, but we can't take that for granted. Over the past 19 months as a deputy commander, I've personally seen the importance of our enduring presence in the region, and our partners seek us as an alternative to the PRC, Russia, and others. Rapidly responding to crisis is not just a phrase in our mission statement. Over the past several years, Southcom has responded, and we will respond again to earthquakes, floods, wildfires, volcanoes, hurricanes, and droughts. To be a trusted partner, we must be credible, present, and engaged. Our main campaigning tool in this region is security cooperation. If confirmed, I'll work tirelessly with our partners to understand their requirements, then work across the whole of government to deliver at the point of need and build partner nation capability and capacity to respond to our shared threats in our neighborhood. I also look forward, if confirmed, to working with Congress, who are essential partners in the defense of our nation. Thank you again, Chairman Reed, Ranking Member Wicker, members of the committee for this opportunity. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Admiral. I have a series of questions required of all nominees. You may answer in unison. Have you adhered to applicable laws and regulations governing conflicts of interest?
Yes.
Have you assumed any duties or taken any actions that would appear to presume the outcome of the confirmation process?
No.
Exercising our legislative and oversight responsibilities makes it important that this committee, its subcommittees, and other appropriate committees of Congress receive testimony, briefings, reports, records, and other information from the executive branch on a timely basis. Do you agree, if confirmed, to appear and testify before this committee when requested?
Yes.
Do you agree, when asked before this committee, to give your personal views, even if your views differ from the administration?
Yes.
Do you agree to provide records, documents, and electronic communications in a timely manner when requested by this committee, its subcommittees, or other appropriate committees of Congress, and to consult with the requester regarding the basis for any good faith delay or denial in providing such records?
Yes.
Will you ensure that your staff complies with deadlines established by this committee for the production of reports, records, and other information, including timely responding to hearing questions for the record?
Yes.
Will you cooperate in providing witnesses and briefers in response to congressional requests?
Yes.
Will those witnesses and briefers be protected from reprisal for their testimony or briefings?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Admiral Halsey, could you give a brief outline of Southcom's current priorities and initiatives to counter the acute threat of Russia and China and other malign combinations? You might bring that microphone a little forward, sir.
Yes, Senator.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, for the current priorities are to strengthen partnerships, counter threats, and to build our team. So as we look at the Southcom AOR, strategic competition is real. As I mentioned, the PRC and Russia continue to try to undermine democracy and seek to gain power and influence in the region. When I look at the transnational criminal organizations, they continue to create chaos throughout the region. The transnational criminal organizations and the violent extremist organizations remain the primary threat to instability in the region. You also have a third of their funding that they take in each year is counter drug mission from drug ops or illicit drugs. So we're watching that very closely. Then finally, I'm concerned about the unrest in Haiti, Venezuela, and Cuba as it stands right now. That also contributes to the irregular migration we're seeing.
And in particular with respect to Russian and Chinese influence?
Yes, sir. So with regard to Russia, China first, China remains a long-term strategic competitor. They're a pacing challenge, and they're setting the theater. In my view, a PRC approach to the region is primarily driven by economics, which provides access, influence, and the opportunity to coerce our partner nations into unfavorable terms. In short, they see unchecked opportunity. I think they're playing the long view to using economic statecraft to advance their foreign policy goals. So that's the quick piece there from an economic side. But it's more than that. I think their efforts to develop and build dual-use sites and facilities in the region is concerning, from space and labor infrastructure to ports and 5G infrastructure as well. From a Russia standpoint, they're a more acute challenge. They seek to undermine democracy. They like to compete with the United States, I believe, on a global scale, and they look for low-cost opportunities to exert their influence and take advantage of the chaos in the region to build their partnerships and undermine ours. They generally look to, again, maintain partnerships. They seek to provide presence, and they try to shape their information space. So all that's very challenging. I think we get after that, sir, through our security cooperation, our partnerships, working the whole of government to make sure we can stay on the field and engage.
Thank you very much. General Nordhaus, you have been at every level of service in the National Guard and with the Air Force. Can you give us sort of your lessons learned from the numerous post-9/11 contingency operations that the Guard has been assigned? And they've carried them out magnificently. I was a few months ago in Kosovo with my National Guard as they are fulfilling their mission. So the lessons you think are most critical?
Thanks, Chairman. Appreciate the opportunity. The National Guard and our airmen and soldiers are completely integrated and interoperable with our active Army and Air Force. And that lesson, as we look into the future, needs to continue. As we look at priorities as I go forward, if confirmed, our people are the most critical. So recruiting and retention and making sure that we have those and continue that. The lessons learned there to make sure that we always have our force structure full, organized, trained, equipped to be that combat reserve to the Army and the Air Force. Then really readiness. I think readiness is something that we have to continue to build, and as we look at great power competition that we're in, we have to accelerate that and make sure that readiness for our airmen and our soldiers are ready to be deployable, interoperable, and sustainable. And then the partnerships that you mentioned. As we look at 106 state partners around the globe today, those partnerships are critical and are asymmetric advantage for our nation. And then modernization. We need to stay concurrent with modernization with our services so that we can always be ready and there for them.
Thank you very much, General. Thank you both for your service to the nation. Senator Wicker, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral Halsey, in my opening statement, I mentioned how prohibitively expensive security assistance is in the region, and suggested other ways in which we could perhaps emphasize our friendship and strengthen our ties with our friends in Southcom. I mentioned Office of Strategic Capital Development Finance Corporation and the Export-Import Bank. Do you agree, and what do you think about that?
Senator, I actually do absolutely agree. Economic security is national security. And what we're seeing from our partners, we have to be able to respond at the point of need, at the point of relevance. And so we're realizing as we work through the foreign military sales, foreign military financing process, it can be slow at times. So we're looking for opportunities. In some countries are high-income countries, and so we're trying to find ways to deliver quicker. So we are exploring right now with Exim Bank. We'll get a chance to go out to the Inter-America Development Bank and other opportunities we're looking at talking to American Chamber of Commerce. So we're trying to get our story out there and kind of get the synergy with our partners to understand that here's opportunities for you to actually go after. So we're really pressing real hard on that. We'll continue to do so, sir, if confirmed.
Okay, you talked about us being the trusted partner in the great majority of the nations in Southcom, and I think you mentioned three particular areas where there's a problem. That, of course, would be Cuba, Venezuela, and I believe you said Haiti. In the other countries other than those three, isn't it a fact that even though we are the trusted partner, the People's Republic of China is right in there, paying for infrastructure, spreading their money around? And is that correct? Am I correct in that? And if you could elaborate on that for us, please.
So, Senator, the PRC continues to, right now you have 22 countries of 31 who are signatories of the Belt and Road Initiative. And so what they do with the Belt and Road Initiative, they portray that as expanding economic, financial, and trade opportunities. I think we see it a bit differently. I think by the time our countries realize they've been deceived, they find themselves with more debt, high interest rate loans, poorly constructed infrastructure projects, data insecurity, resource extraction, and environmental concerns. So you're right. I think there are countries there, and not all of them, but all of them are looking for opportunities. So I think we have to find ways, working throughout the whole of government, the Department of Commerce and others, and to be able to find ways and find solutions where we can deliver at the point of need.
How has that negative experience over some years now with Belt and Road affected our friends' willingness to initiate other projects assisted by Belt and Road?
So I think our partners look at us from a standpoint, from mill to mill, they're solid. They want to work with us. They want to be with us. There are some nations, as you look
Are
at.
they, but Admiral, are they beginning to be reluctant to accept China's help because of the negative practices so far?
Yes, sir.
All
They
right.
are.
Let me just ask you one other thing. The President Xi has told his Congress in China that they need to be prepared to retake Taiwan by 2027. If that occurs, what can we expect China to be doing in your area as that occurs?
Senator, as the deputy commander, I've been around for 18 months, 19 months now, and I will share with you that we continue to work in accordance with our guidance to prepare to defend the Panama Canal and make sure we can provide our best military advice to the Secretary and Chairman, and that's what we'll do.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Wicker. Senator Shaheen, please.
Thank you. Congratulations to both of you, and thank you to both of you for your service and to your families for their service as well, and welcome. General Nordhaus, I really appreciated your time in my office this week. As you know, I'm very concerned about the National Guard Bureau's decision to level personnel at the 157th Air Refueling Wing at Pease Air Guard Base in New Hampshire. I believe this was a short-sighted decision, that it was done with consideration to neither the capacity of the 157th in New Hampshire nor the need of the KC-46 to meet its global refueling requirements. And just to give you some background on the 157th, I assume you know all of this, but I think it's worth repeating. The 157th was the first Air National Guard unit to receive the KC-46 refueling tanker. They were selected because of their success and operations and their strategic location. It was the first refueling wing in the country to achieve initial operating capacity of the 5 active duty Guard and Reserve wings flying the KC-46. They were the first air refueling wing to conduct a long-range exercise, and for that they received recognition from top Air Force leadership. And now they are the first KC-46 air refueling wing in the entire Air Force to deploy the KC-46 overseas. I was just in New Hampshire on Sunday, as we discussed. I addressed the 300 airmen and women about to deploy. They are excited about this milestone, but they are unfortunately very worried about what the releveling would mean for their ability to do their jobs. This decision, I think, is problematic not just for New Hampshire, but for the KC-46 to meet its operational requirements globally. The proposed leveling will cause a reduction in force at Pease by 12 full-time positions. It will revert 22 positions from full-time active Guard reserve to technician, resulting in the loss of experienced maintainers and aviators. The Guard projects its ability to support TRANSCOM will decrease by 23%. And this at a time when we know that aerial refueling capacity is among the top concerns for Strategic Command and Transportation Command. We heard that from their commanders before this committee. In the context of the National Defense Strategy, as you were just discussing with the chair and ranking member, aerial refueling will be necessary to resupply U.S. forces in the Indo-Pacific. So if confirmed, I hope you will visit New Hampshire with the you will meet with the 157th, and you will provide an opportunity to look at the importance of their mission to an exemption for this policy. I know that that has been done in some other states, in Alaska, because of the critical mission that they operate, and I believe that you will find that that's the case in New Hampshire as well. Will you commit to doing that and looking at the whole releveling issue with respect to New Hampshire and the 157th?
Senator, thank you for the question and for being on the National Guard caucus. The 157th also, I'll just throw out, you named a lot of great things that the 157th is doing. Currently, as the NORAD Continental Region Commander, they also support air refueling for POTUS support and other things across the United States. So I understand the great capability. Understand that General Hokanson said that any state that had a concern, that he would consider a one-year exemption. My understanding is New Hampshire asked for that, and that's been granted. He also said that they conduct an assessment. It's my understanding that Air National Guard within the next couple of weeks will visit New Hampshire. If confirmed, I do promise to make sure we take a full, transparent look at this and to make sure that we're meeting mission requirements with full-time requirements. And I look forward to visiting the P's 157th if confirmed, and look forward to giving this my full attention.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I would like to submit for the record the assessment that we have done, that the National Guard has done on what the impact would be of that releveling in New Hampshire.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Shaheen. Senator Fisher, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, General. Welcome, Admiral. Good to see you. Admiral Halsey, I share your concern about the growing influence of China in some countries within Southcom's AOR. If confirmed, how would you continue or bolster efforts to ensure that the United States is going to be viewed as a partner of choice?
Senator, as I look at the way forward, if confirmed, I think our strength lies in our security cooperation. I think we continue to do the security cooperation, and then under that level, we have several levers we can use: state partnership program, the humanitarian assistance program, our joint exercise program, which is a very powerful tool. Today, right now, we have the UNITAS ongoing, 24 nations serving a ship side by side, F-18s, ships, submarines. So we're doing real world ops right now, and what that does, it provides the training, interoperability, trust, and confidence in our partners. So that's something that we can do and we continue to do. So I think I'll continue to work on the security cooperation, and again, whole of government approach, diplomacy in the lead, and then make sure we integrate those efforts with the economic and military as well.
This committee, we consistently hear that we have to be more effective in a whole of government approach, especially when we're trying to engage with our partners. If confirmed, can you give me some specific examples with how you would work maybe with the Department of State, with the Department of Commerce, any other agencies that are out there, so that we can become even better partners in Latin America?
Yes, sir. Right now,
I think you need your mic on.
the civilian deputy at U.S. Southern Command is actually an ambassador. She served in Guyana, so she's there in our office right now. We have Department of Commerce LNO in our one of our 13 LNOs we have in our command. So there's avenues to reach in and utilize our talents, and we have to do that. I think when we convene our conferences, Chief of Mission conferences, we bring all the ambassadors to Southcom, and we invite all the Department of State Commerce and have these discussions. That's how we learn about the great opportunity with Ex-Im Bank, by inviting the president down to the conference. So we'll continue to look for those avenues to understand better what opportunities we have. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. General, we look at a significant amount of total force, logistics, and airlift capability, and we know that that resides with our National Guard. In a potential conflict, especially with a peer adversary, especially when one may happen with limited notification, limited warnings to our country, National Guard forces are going to have to really mobilize quickly. What do you see as opportunities to increase integration and collaboration with the total force, especially in terms of planning and exercise, so that we can have a much quicker deployment?
Senator, over the last decade, I've really seen an incredible integration of the National Guard with all operations across the Army and the Air Force. As we look at transformation that's going on with the Army and optimizing for great power competition in the United States Air Force, our National Guard on both sides are fully integrated into their plans. And then as we do exercises, large-scale exercises, as we prepare for that type of conflict if it were to come. I think we're well integrated across the board. If confirmed, I will work with General George and General Alvin to make sure that we continue that and make sure that we're always ready and always there and we can mobilize quickly to meet the needs of our nation.
You know, we've heard this morning the state partnership program. It's been mentioned a couple times. The Admiral just did that. Do you see opportunities out there that we can continue to build upon this program? I believe that most states are involved in it. Nebraska has a couple partners. And I know that our Guard feels that that's a valuable program, not just for our country, but in the countries that we serve with as well. Any opportunities out there to grow this?
Absolutely, Senator. We will work with combatant commands to make sure that we take a look at all the opportunities that are out there and through the State Department. We recently just added Finland and Sweden, and so we will continue to look at that program. I think it is the incredible asymmetric capability of our nation with our allies and partners to be that great force for our nation and for freedom.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Fisher. Senator Kane, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and congratulations to the witnesses for your nominations. General Nordhaus, I want to begin where Senator Fisher left off on the state partnership program. Virginia has a partnership with Tajikistan that goes back to 2003, and we're very proud that this year we formed an additional state partnership with Finland. Finland joining NATO combines nicely with the fact that we're standing up a NATO command in Norfolk to focus on the North Atlantic and the Arctic. And Finland as a state partnership, as a state partner, I think will be a very valuable one for us. So I just want to encourage the work that you will continue to do when you are confirmed to strengthen these programs and look at the way the state partnership programs can evolve to help us face challenges of the future. I have a very specific question for you, General Nordhaus. The blended retirement system was developed in the 2016 NDAA to include incentives like mid-career continuation pay to encourage retention. Talk a little bit about how the National Guard has been impacted by this new system, and is there anything additional Congress can do to provide support for National Guard members through programs like blended retirement?
Senator, thanks for the question and the comments on the state partnership program. As we look at our National Guard and we continue to see really high retention rates, I think that's one of the things that we'll have to continue to look at to see what impacts a blended retirement system has. As I said in my opening statement and talked about with the chairman, people are my #1 priority. And so we have to understand what they need, what the requirements are to make sure that they're organized, trained, equipped to be able to do the mission, but they also have the appropriate pay and benefits to make sure that the National Guard is a great place to work and then have that in longevity.
I understand going forward, we need to assess that all the time. Do you have a kind of, this has been in place for a couple of years, do you have a sense for how it's working? I mean, are we too hot, too cold, just right, or how would you assess it thus far?
Senator, my early assessment from my time, I haven't seen a significant change, but if confirmed, I will definitely make that something I'll take a look at to understand the impacts. If I see anything negative, I'll be sure to come back to the committee.
Thank you for that. Admiral Halsey, I chair the Americas Subcommittee on Senate Foreign Relations, and I'll pick up on some questions and line of inquiry from Senator Wicker. He was asking you whether partners in the Americas are seeing or developing skepticism based upon some of their interactions with China. And I think you're right that the answer is yes. And yet what I hear when I travel in the region is, but you can't beat something with nothing. They may put, deals on the table that could trap us in debt. They may want to do development projects that will be performed in a substandard way. Sometimes those projects are performed with Chinese workers, not workers from the countries in question. There are environmental challenges. They're worrying about data security. I hear that everywhere. And yet they usually conclude by saying, and yet they are putting significant investments on the table that they're willing to do. And they don't necessarily see the same attention, resources from the United States. If you include U.S. private company investment, and we should always talk about that as part of what we do, then it equalizes a little bit more. But they tend to see China coming with a checkbook that's nearly blank checks that they're willing to fill in whatever the number is, and they don't really see that from us. And some of the programs that we have, frankly, for nations in the Americas, as soon as they achieve some level of success, like a Costa Rica or Dominican Republic, we say, well, now you're a well-off nation, and so these programs can't serve you anymore. I think we need to do an awful lot more to help those nations in the Americas that are allies, who are successful, to succeed even more. And what they often say to us is, as soon as we're successful, you don't pay attention to us and you spend your time on the headaches. Obviously, we need to spend some time on the headaches, but I think we're getting out-competed in the Americas, and that's my sense. General Richardson, I think, did a wonderful job. I know you and she have worked closely together in strengthening the mill-to-mill partnerships, but it does need to go beyond that. So if you could, maybe share with the committee, what risks do we assume as a country if we fail to devote the necessary resources, military or otherwise, and attention to the challenges we're seeing in Latin America?
Thank you, Senator. Just one quick thing I'll share. When you look at the 5G standpoint, and so from 5G, if you have a Huawei system or a PRC system, now our partners have that data and security. It was connected to your network system. Now, how do you continue to work with us, right? So we're trying to make sure we have opportunities and options for them, and we just have to move a whole lot faster. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you very much, Senator Kane. Senator Cotton, please.
Thank you. Gentlemen, congratulations on your nominations, and congratulations and thank you to your families and your mentors and the NCOs across the course of your career who brought you to this point. General Nordhaus, obviously the National Guard plays a very critical role for our nation. We see them at home responding to natural disasters or crises, but we also rely on them for our national security. As some of the other senators have said about their National Guard, the Arkansas National Guard was just last year in Germany providing critical support and training to Ukraine's armed forces, where I visited with them. And just next week, we'll have a ribbon-cutting ceremony at Ebbing Air Force Base for the new foreign training mission for the F-35. These are very vitally important, not just for the Arkansas National Guard, but also for our nation's security. And I know that I have your commitment to support that just as much as your predecessors have, correct?
Yes, sir. Support those important programs that you talked about.
Thank you. I want to turn to an issue that's kind of at the intersection of your current role at NORAD and that might be in your role at the National Guard Bureau. You're familiar, obviously, with the high tempo of drone incursions over our military installations, not just in places like Iraq and Syria, but here in the United States, to include National Guard bases. What's your view of the National Guard's role in defending installations and domestic infrastructure from such drone incursions?
Senator, you raised an important issue. Counter small UAS and protecting our bases is absolutely vital. We are seeing increased incursions through NORTHCOM Commander General Gio, which sets the force protection across the United States. Bases have that responsibility to defend and secure their and protect their bases. The same would be for the National Guard in the bases. And so I'd work whole of government approach, and certainly with the services that has taken this issue very seriously and on weekly meetings to make sure we get after the problem.
Okay. Do you have the relevant authority you need right now to support DHS and DOJ when we see drone incursions violating U.S. airspace controls over U.S. military installations?
Senator, authorities are different in the United States than they are overseas. And so I know General Gio, NORTHCOM, as the synchronizer for the Department of Defense, certainly looking at those and working those authorities to make sure if additional ones are needed, that's brought forward. We want to make sure that we have the right capability, both either kinetic or non-kinetic, to understand and domain awareness so that we can sense the incursions, and then that we have the problem set right in the authorities to use whatever need to protect our people and our equipment.
Thank you. Any thoughts on what you might do if confirmed about the long-term procurement and sustainment of capabilities needed for a homeland counter-drone mission?
Oh, for the counter-drone mission. Yes, Senator, we'll work with our services who are the procurement authority, so I'll certainly work with General Alvin and General George as we look forward to the best way to defend our bases and protect our people.
Okay, thank you. Admiral Halsey, I want to talk a little bit about Haiti. There's a current UN plan under the Multinational Security Support Mission to deploy around 2,500 personnel to Haiti, mostly from Kenya and Benin, but also some Caribbean nations. I have to say, this strikes me as a totally harebrained scheme. Port-au-Prince, for instance, has 1.2 million people. It's overrun by gangs and militias, and it lacks a functioning government. I know that in your current role or your future role, you don't shape policy as it relates to Haiti, but I do want to know from your military expertise and your role as the current deputy commander in Southcom, what do you think is the prospect of success for a force of 2,500 personnel to stabilize a city of 1.2 million people without an effective government?
Senator, thanks for that question. As I look at the current layout, right now we're planning for approximately 1,000 at this point is what we're looking at. So it's a very challenging problem set, right? But I will share with you, as I look at least one metric, right now we have the about 350, almost 380 so Kenyans on the ground. When I look at the number of Haitians coming through the Darien, I've seen that number trending down for the last couple of months. I think that's somewhat sending a signal to at least the Haitians that they're willing to wait and see how this plays out. But it will be a very challenging problem set, sir.
Yeah, I think it'll be challenging as well. And what concerns me most is there's a fairly long history of our interventions or the UN's interventions in Haiti, and they don't have a very good end stories, especially the United Nations and what some of its officials have done in Haiti. I just worry very much that other nations are biting off more than they can chew under a harebrained UN scheme, and where are they going to turn in a crisis? They're going to turn to you and to the United States and our personnel, and we might end up in a situation where we have to put American forces at least into the ports to help evacuate people, and I think that would be very, very unwise for our nation. So I agree that 2,500 troops, or even a few more than that, is unlikely to do much in Haiti and puts our own personnel potentially at great risk in the future. Thank you.
Sure.
Congratulations both.
Sir.
Thank you very much, Senator Cotton. Senator King, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral Halsey, you're serving in a war zone. Since we've been sitting here this morning, 10 Americans have died as a result of the work in that war zone. I'm talking about overdose deaths, over 100,000 in the country, almost one a day in my state of Maine. Americans are dying, and here's what's the problem, or a problem, a part of the problem. We are only interdicting 25% of the drug shipments by sea that are coming to this country that we know of, that intelligence tells us are coming and where they are, and yet 75% of them get through. That's inexcusable. There's something crazy about that. We're talking about prospective issues with other countries in the region. This is a real live war zone where people are being killed. And I just don't understand it. This has been going on for years. I've been asking this question. So I want to understand why we're able to only interdict 25% of the drug shipments that we know about. And if it's a lack of ships, let's find them. The Navy, the Coast Guard, neighboring countries. How about this? The boats that we do interdict, let's get the people off and the drugs off and turn them into, arm them, and then they can be part of the fleet to interdict other shipments. But we've got to think creatively about this. I'm tired of coming to this hearing every couple of years and hearing this same figure of 25% interdiction of what we know of. Will you commit to me to do two things? Number one, to look for the resources and the assets that are necessary to execute this mission. And number two, to look at the organization of the mission. There are lots of U.S. government agencies involved: intelligence, DHS, drug interdiction, Navy, Coast Guard. My sense is nobody's in charge. And I'd like you to come back to this committee with an organizational chart that shows that somebody is in charge. And I never like to hear the phrase all of government. Every time I hear that phrase, what I hear is nobody's in charge. Will you make those two commitments, Admiral?
Senator, I understand your concern, and even one life is precious, and so it doesn't matter how many, right? One is precious. I will share with you that I commit to looking at this very closely. I believe that we have areas that we can improve. I will advocate for adequate resourcing area maritime assets to bolster our presence and to be able to affect interdictions. I think we have to do that. We have to continue to work with intelligence as well. But again, it's a very challenging problem set. We will continue to support the lead federal agency, the DEA. Again, we have all those resources, but now we have to bring them together.
But if you don't have the assets, if you don't have those ships, let us know. That's the business that we're in. Let us know so that we can try to solve this problem. But I want you to, as you're flying back today, bear in mind that one American every 5 minutes, 24 hours a day, is dying.
Yes, sir.
As a result of this crisis. General, congratulations on your appointment. I should have said that to you as also Admiral Halsey. We want KC-146s at Bangor at the 101st Air Fueling Wing, and I hope that that's going to be on your list. That's, as you know, during the Gulf War, during anything that's going on in Europe, Ukraine, the 101st Air Refueling Wing is critical because what they work is the North Atlantic. So will you commit to me that they will get a good, close, serious consideration for the next round of deployment of KC-46s?
Senator, like you raised, the KC-46 and is an incredible platform for us. I also visited Bangor up there within the last 6 months or so, and so you have an incredible unit up there. Certainly with the states that and opportunities for KC-46, that'll be a very critical process that we're going through right now. Certainly, all the states that have the opportunity, I believe there's 15 of them, will have a full look with the criteria that's been acknowledged by the states, also approved by the wing commanders and the tags, and then that'll come up through a process and be open and transparent for that.
Thank you. I was going to suggest you could, as you visit Bangor, you could visit Peace by flying over it on the way to Bangor. I suggested that to Senator Shaheen. Quick note, a lot of people have mentioned partnerships, these international partnerships. We have one with Montenegro, very successful. We came to their defense in 2022 on a cyber incident. It made a huge difference for them. I'm very proud of our cyber warriors in Maine, as well as the maniacs of the 101st. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Wicker.
I yielded back 14 seconds earlier. I wonder if I could ask Admiral Halsey, what do we do with those boats that we seize and interdict? And what do you think about that suggestion?
So actually, sir, we actually do seize boats. In fact, part of our JADF South and as well as our NAV South hybrid fleet, we're using some of these boats as drones, as targets, and so we do that. And then if it's unseaworthy, then the ship generally sinks it or scuttles it if it's not seaworthy afterwards.
I think it's a worthwhile suggestion that Senator King has made.
Thank you, Senator Wicker. Thank you, Senator King. Senator Scott, please.
All right. Thank you, Chairman. First, congratulations on your nominations. Thank you for your willingness to serve. Thank you for the sacrifice of your families. So I'm from Florida, so we follow closely what's going on in Latin America. So you can look at Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua, Colombia, look at all these places, even some issues that are going on in Brazil. So Admiral Halsey, let's take Venezuela. Maduro's trying to steal the election. I'm very disappointed the Biden and Harris administration won't recognize Gonzalez as the president-elect. The election was clearly stolen. We're still fighting to make sure that Maduro leaves power. So what if Maduro doesn't leave power? What concerns do you have? What will happen in Venezuela, and how does it impact our national security?
So, Senator, I understand your concern. I think if Maduro doesn't leave, I think the instability will continue. The economy has worsened since 2013. You had over 8 million migrants leave the country. You've had the economy, there's a lack of food, water, supplies, services. So again, I see a potential where the mass migration continues or through the Darien. And if confirmed, I'll continue to work with my allies and partners in the region to try to mitigate the instability caused by the migration.
So communist China, or communist regime in Cuba, do you think they're a national security threat to the United States?
I think right now, Senator, in Cuba, as I think they're being supported by both Russia and China from a security cooperation, deepen their relationship with them. And if confirmed, I continue to make sure we remain keenly aware of any defense cooperation, intelligence collection, or military deployments, and make sure I can provide options as required.
Do you believe Colombia is a trusted military partner?
In my 19 months in the job now, I see no reason why they're not. I think they're very engaged with us. They're taking losses every day. They're in the fight against the TCOs, and they're looking for our support, and I think we need to continue to support them.
Does it concern you that that Petro has alliances with Cuba, with Maduro, and with Communist China?
Right now, sir, from my standpoint, I really work with the military. I think kind of a bigger DOD or a bigger policy question, but I think our role as a military organization, alignment with the military folks, we have to make sure that stays pretty tight, and I'll continue to do that.
Free speech is under assault in Brazil after it banned the use of X, which is blatant censorship of the Brazilian people by the socialist Lula government. What challenges do restrictive censorship policies like these have on our ability to maintain productive U.S. military relationships?
I think right now, Senator, the relationship we have with at least the military is pretty solid, and they've supported us, and we'll continue to support them. Even when they visit us, they still talk about when they supported us in World War II. I think they're there as reliable, trusted partners from Brazil. I think we should support them as well. Clearly, I think from a Department of State, interagency standpoint, whole of government, we take a look at policies restricting free speech.
Admiral Halsey, many civilians work at Southcom, and we have an election coming up around the corner. If one of those civilians was found to have violated the Hatch Act, how would you hold them accountable?
I would hold them accountable, sir.
What would you do?
We'll have it investigated and properly.
Could I ask both of you what you think the importance of Homestead Air Force Base is?
Yes, sir. Currently, from a Southcom perspective, it's a solid resource for us. We use it in our recent Haiti operations. We've used it in exercises. It's the home of our SOC South headquarters, which is our headquarters that head component for our PRC. So we like their location and what they're doing for us.
Yeah. And Senator, from my current position for CONA, or First Air Force, certainly they do a role down from Homestead with the Aerospace Control Alert. They're an incredible unit down there with the 125th that flies out of Homestead at times. So it's very important to us.
All right, thanks. Admiral Halsey, do you need more assets? Going back to what Senator King brought up, do you have the assets? I mean, what surprises me is we spend all this money in the Middle East and all over the world, and it seems like we treat you guys like a stepchild when we have all these issues going on in Latin America.
So, Senator, we are a posture limited theater. I think we're working with the assets we have. But again, if confirmed, I would take a look at our current mission set and look to, and I'll certainly ask for more assets. I need them going forward. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Scott. Senator Peters, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here and for all your work and service to our country. We appreciate you. General Nordhaus, I want to first off just thank you. Thank you for coming to the office yesterday. We had an opportunity to discuss a variety of issues, and I appreciated that opportunity. And as we discussed at length yesterday, Selfridge Air National Guard Base in Michigan, which I know you're very familiar with and you've actually flown in and out of as a fighter pilot, is the largest Air National Guard base in the country. It has very unique base operational mission requirements and is the sole host requiring additional personnel. And to be clear, it is like an active duty base. It's not an Air National Guard facility that shares a civilian airfield and as a part of it, it is the airfield. It is the base. It really is, for all intents and purposes, an active duty base, the only one in the Air National Guard system. But I'm very concerned about some potential personnel decisions at Selfridge, indicating that the base is going to lose up to 117 full-time civilians, including 15 contracting personnel. So my question for you, General, is if confirmed, I understand you have the authority to pause these cuts. And can I get your commitment that you will pause these personnel cuts until an independent third-party manpower study comparing Selfridge personnel needs to active duty bases, not other Air National Guard bases that are adjacent to a civilian airfield and share those facilities, but like an active duty base? Would you commit to having that independent third-party study so we're really truly comparing apples to apples, not apples to oranges?
Senator, like you said, I'm from Toledo, so my time up in that area has been incredible, and to see Michigan and Selfridge, so I've been there many times. I understand the base very well. Certainly want to work with your team, if confirmed, to go back and forth to make sure that we can get to right and what that looks like. And if we can't get to an agreement that what the appropriate thing to do is, I certainly, you have my commitment to look at a third party to make sure that we can look at all the numbers to make sure that we meet mission to requirements and take care of our people in the mission. And I know how critical it is up in the state of Michigan.
Well, that's wonderful. That's great. I'll look forward, if confirmed, for working with you. And your commitment today that if necessary to have a third party, having a fresh set of eyes looking at it, you're open to that.
Yes, sir. I'm definitely open to that.
Great. Thank you. Also, General Nordhaus, last month, more than 6,300 military personnel from 32 states, as well as many key allies and partners, gathered in Michigan at the National All-Domain Warfighting Center during Exercise Northern Strike. This exercise allows participants to hone their expeditionary, sustainment, and joint integrated fires training. And year after year, more and more units request to join this truly premier training event in an amazing place in northern Michigan. So, General, given this increasing demand, how do you envision expanding Northern Strike during your tenure? And will you commit to working with me to expand both active duty as well as reserve components, as well as our allies and partners to be a presence at Northern Strike to fully utilize this facility and its outstanding training capabilities that exist there?
Senator, likewise, I've flown out of Alpena many times. I understand the incredible airspace and all the opportunities around there, to include Grayling and other areas. Certainly doing these large-scale exercises are critical to how we get after great power competition. You have my commitment that I will do everything I can to make sure that we stay after the capabilities that we need to be interoperable and integrated with our joint partners, allies and partners, and with the joint team.
Great. Good to hear that, General. And my last question, General, as we discussed yesterday in my office, I remain committed to securing a future fighter replacement mission for our retiring A-10 fighter jets that are currently at Selfridge. I know you share my concerns about deactivating the fighter squadron and the resulting degradation of Air Guard and Air Force readiness as a result of that. Selfridge Air Guard pilots have, as you're well aware, a wealth of experience which will be lost. It'll be lost if the Air Force does not recapitalize their fighter mission. So my question for you, General, as an experienced fighter pilot with over 3,000 flight hours, can you share with me and the committee the value of Selfridge's Air Guard fighter pilots and their experience and how necessary that is for the total force?
Senator, certainly when we see times of pilot shortages and maintenance shortage, and the capabilities of fighters to meet the global demand from our combatant commands, I want to work with General Alvin to make sure that we get after the right fighter force structure across the Air Force and in the Air National Guard.
Thank you, General. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Peters. Senator Tuberville, please.
Chairman, gentlemen, thanks for being here. Congratulations. Thanks for your service and your sacrifice, lifetime of sacrifice. Both of you done a great job. General, do you have any numbers on recruiting in National Guard over the last couple of years?
Senator, As I prepped for the hearing to get with both the Army National Guard and the Air National Guard, that was one of my questions, was where are they at and this year for meeting end strength. It's my understanding from them that they're both going to miss it by roughly about 700 to 800. My understanding also is that they've turned the corner coming out of the global pandemic where they weren't able to get into schools and other things where they normally recruited from. So they're starting to see great positivity there. The Future Army Soldier Preparatory Course that the Army has done, is my understanding, the Army has brought in 25,000. I believe 4,500 of those are going into the Army National Guard. Production recruiters, finding assistance, ways to help the production recruiters get after recruiting, back in the schools, getting to junior colleges and those things. I'm committed, if confirmed, from my time at the Readiness Center, where every day I was focused on recruiting and retention, because we have to hire the best, and then we have to organize and train them, equip them to do our nation's capabilities for wartime and peacetime.
Yeah, I think it's so important because we're not reaching our goals in full-time military, and I think it's very important for us to, fill up or even exceed what we do in recruiting in National Guard. Would you agree?
I would agree, Senator.
Yeah, thank you. Admiral, spent some time down in Panama last couple of years, done a little research. We're fortunate to have a new president there in Molino. He thinks like we do. He wants us and to have more presence there with what I've looked at and studied. Probably one of the most asinine decisions is us fully pulling out of the Panama Canal. Since 1999, making that decision in the early 80s. Just talking with people down there, they're hurting economically, and when you're in that point, you're very vulnerable to Russia, China. China had their foothold in till we got this president in down there. We need to make and I know you understand this. We need to be able to hold on to the Panama Canal, because as what we're hearing, if something were to happen in the Pacific, how in the hell are we going to get things to the Pacific, especially from the East Coast, if we got to go all the way down to the bottom of South America and not be able to go through the Panama Canal if China were to be able to block that thing off or do something, damage it or whatever. You agree with that?
Yes, Senator.
Yeah. The problem that they're having down there, again, is do you have, you being the deputy, how many people do we actually have down in the Panama area that helps with the Panamanians with the canal, or do we have any input at all with it?
Yes, Senator, we generally have our SFABs teams, which are really advise and assist teams down there. But I was share with you just recently, we just completed a Panamax exercise where we had hundreds of troops working together, maritime assets, aviation assets, ground assets. And again, that builds that interoperability and that trust and confidence to kind of take on malign actors. So again, and plus it sends a strong signal that we're working together as a team. So we have to continue to do those type of actions.
Yeah, I'd really love to see this president come up and visit with our people in the White House and the Pentagon, because I think this is a huge national security issue if we don't take care of it with this president, because it could change very quickly. If they have another regime changes, their economy is really, really struggling. To another point, tell me about the cell drone that we use in the Caribbean and in your AOR. What do you think that they're adequate and they're doing the job that they need to do?
Yes, sir. I'd like to thank the Navy. I think last year, a couple of years, we got a chance to bring cell drones to our hybrid fleet. It's a new process by the Navy to actually get after with our limited assets. And one thing the partners always ask for is maritime domain awareness. So these cell drones, we've been able to use them from an experimental standpoint and operational, and they're showing promise. So I think we have to continue to work and utilize, figure out how we can use them more so into our scheme, but we do have them located throughout the AR. Yes,
Were
sir.
they used when the Russians brought their ships in, the submarines?
I can talk to you later, sir. I think but it's a great opportunity. We've used them operationally. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
How many do we have in the Caribbean? Do we have a dozen, 2 dozen?
Less than a dozen, sir.
Yeah. Okay. You need more?
Yes, sir. We could use more. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Tellerville. Senator Kelly, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral General, congrats on your nominations. General, Senator Peters asked a question about that was very specific to Selfridge Air Force Base and recapitalization of the fighter jets there. I led some language in the fiscal year 25 Senate NDAA on fighter force preservation and recapitalization, which would require the Secretary of the Air Force to come up with a plan and then implement a plan to sustain and recapitalize all 25 fighter squadrons in the Air National Guard. So what do you think is the right balance between modernization and keeping our fourth-gen fighters?
Senator, from my time as being the Director of Ops for the National Guard and sitting on ops steps, it was great to see the capability not only across the Air Force and in the National Guard, but the requirements across the globe for fighter demand. If confirmed, I want to work with General Alvin to make sure that we understand what that right balance is between 4th gen and 5th gen to make sure that we can be there not only for the combat commands, but also for Homeland Defense.
And what kind of weight do you give like a conflict in the Western Pacific compared to European theater when making these kind of decisions?
Senator, as we look at China, certainly they're trying to gain advantage in land, air, sea, cyber, and space. And so over in the Indo-PACOM theater, China is our pacing threat. And so we want to make sure that we have the right capabilities. And 5th gen can be balanced with 4th gen and other things that the Air Force is working. So once again, I want to, if confirmed, want to work with General Alvin to get after that problem set.
All right. Thank you, General. Admiral, we are in the midst of global strategic competition with both Russia and China. And China especially continues to influence a lot of effort there to influence in the Western Hemisphere, economic engagement that they use to gain access to natural resources and influence in the politics of countries, especially in Latin America and the Caribbean, are having an effect. And we continue to see inroads that China is making in South America. 22 countries in Southcom have joined the Belt and Road Initiative as China seeks to sign them up for some pretty bad deals and then exploit them for their natural resources. So, Admiral, how can we, or you, Southcom, highlight to countries in Latin America and South America about the dangers of working with China?
Senator, I share your concern. I think we have to continue to expose malign activity as we see it. That's done a lot by our engagement from the diplomatic standpoint. When we do our military exercises, our mil-to-mil exchanges, we've been able to, one thing our partners are asking for us now is cyber. So we have been able to go and do joint combatant command cyber assess teams. So we go and look at their systems and help them out. Cyber hygiene, they ask for space support too. So again, I think it's really a whole of government effort to kind of show the malign activity and make sure our partners are aware of it. We have to continue to do that with speed.
Beyond cyber, can you talk a little bit about the impact that foreign military sales in Southcom have and the benefits of building strong relationships with our partners in the area in light of the fact that China often goes in there and gives them some pretty good deals on equipment that is not first rate.
So to be clear, our partnerships are best determinants in theater, and again, our major lever as a posture limited theater is the security cooperation. And so via the foreign military sales process, foreign military financing is a key enabler for us, but we have to deliver faster though. And that's kind of the thing we've seen as we kind of go forward as we've been watching this process the last year. So we're trying to find ways to deliver quicker, to get our partners, meet them at a point of need, to get them the assets they need. But again, they want the maritime domain awareness, they want the cyber, they want the patrol craft. So again, if we do that, then we have to deliver so that PRC doesn't have a chance.
Is there one country in particular that you're concerned about in their interest in buying PRC military hardware?
So they have a lease. Venezuela is one for sure. Cuba is one for sure as well. But as far as I was happy to see Argentines get the F-16 vice the JF-17. We did not want that in this theater. But again, they're very they're very subtle, they engage, and they won't stop, so we have to stay on top of it. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that J-17 issue was one that I've been tracking since I got here, and it is good to see that they'll be flying F-16s instead. Better plane for them, too.
Sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Kelly. Senator Budd, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good to see you all again. I enjoyed our conversations earlier and this week in my office. The National Defense Strategy, it's clear that protecting our homeland is our military's #1 priority. And one of the greatest threats to the security of the American people is the crisis at the southern border. Now, as we talked about, although DOD is not the lead federal agency responsible for securing the border or enforcing immigration laws, if confirmed, you'll both play a critical role in stemming the flow of illegal immigration and combating drug cartels plaguing our country with fentanyl. So, General, if confirmed, you would oversee training and mobilization of more than 2,500 National Guardsmen supporting the Customs and Border Patrol at the border. Admiral, if confirmed, you would be responsible for Southcom's efforts to combat transnational criminal organizations profiting from human trafficking and drug trafficking. And that ultimately harms our communities across the country, including communities in my home state of North Carolina. So my question is this: if confirmed, will you both make these efforts a top priority? I'd appreciate a simple yes or no answer. General.
Yes, Senator.
Admiral.
Yes, Senator.
Thank you both. General, in your advanced policy questions, you state that you're proud of the National Guard's support of the border mission, their support of it, right? But yet you make it a point that it doesn't add readiness value. Can you help me understand that a little better?
Senator, first off, I'd like to thank the committee for the funds that they provide for our counter-drug program. 2,500 of our folks are out there doing and supporting across the United States. And in 2023, $10 billion worth of illegal drugs were taken off the street. So thank you for the efforts on our counter-drug program. As we go to the southwest border, we want to make sure that the readiness is not getting added. So while they're on the southwest border, they're doing advise and assist monitoring. They're in support of Customs and Border Patrol so that they can do their law enforcement along there. They're not back home training for great power competition missions. They're not back home with their families and their employers getting set up so that the next time they're asked to deploy overseas for a combat role that they're have that more spin for the National Guard. We've seen a very consistent that our service members continue to be retained at a high level, and so they appreciate the deploy to dwell that they have. But every time we send them to another location, it does take them away from their families and from their employers, and we can't use them to train for great power competition.
Thank you for your leadership on this. General, I think the part that's not said is the emphasis and the need to have strict enforcement of our immigration laws and fully allow Border Patrol to secure our border so that the guardsmen under your watch and care can get back to preparing for potential conflict with our adversaries. Admiral, earlier this week in my office, we had a great discussion regarding the lengthy and bureaucratic processes that our allies and partners face in the foreign military sales process. So how does the current FMS process hamper efforts with partners in places like Panama, Colombia, that could help those countries stem the flow of migrants, illegal migrants, or combat drug cartels?
So, Senator, I understand your concern. It's very long process.
Yes.
There are a lot of different, as you term, wickets to go through to get the letter of acceptance to go back to whether it's a ship or a service the company's going to go to. So it takes a lot of time. And you want to generally make sure you're checking all the boxes and make sure you get it right. That's part of it's just really bureaucracy, right? So again, and our partners are waiting for these tools. If they don't get them, then they'll look elsewhere. So right now, what we're trying to do is working with XM Bank and others to find other ways to deliver quicker. And so again, we had a Chief of Mission Conference this past May, had a chance to bring in the XM Bank president, share that story with and how she's willing to help, and others avenues to go after things outside the process. And we're seeing some results that we might be able to train to and get better results. Over.
Thank you for that. Would you mind sharing with the committee the example of the Maritime Patrol aircraft that took personal involvement from General Richardson in order to get it delivered?
Yeah, yes, very briefly, I think the aircraft have been stalled for over 2 years, and her first visit with the president, he asked about that aircraft, and she came back and really got personally involved, and 3 months later or so, the plane was delivered, and she was able to go there, and the president was actually there at the reception, along with some of his cabinet members. So it's a great process, if we get it to work.
So in closing, I'll ask you this. If confirmed, Admiral, do you commit to keep the committee updated on similar issues so that we can work together to improve the FMS process?
Yes, Senator.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Budd. Senator Schmidt, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Admiral, I have some questions for you. Thank you for being here. You authored the controversial, I would say, Task Force 1 Navy report. Is that right?
Yes, I was part of the lead there, yes.
Okay. I want to ask you a few questions about that. So on page 33, it recommends including a, quote, cultural framework questionnaire tailored to individual minority candidates for the Naval Academy. What does that mean?
So I don't have that in front of me right now, Senator, but I would share that basically what we started looking at was a whole of person criteria to look at young folks and make sure we can open our aperture and look for more talent and look the talents of all those willing to serve our nation.
So does that mean that there's a different application based on somebody's race?
No, Senator, and to be clear, we are a warfighting organization. Our most fundamental duty is support and defend the Constitution and to support and make sure we can take care of the safety and security of the American people. That's what we're about. We're warfighters, right? So that's what this process is about, to make sure we can build readiness.
Well, I would agree with that. On page 40, I'm honestly trying to understand what some of these terms mean and how it would apply. I don't think any of this stuff has been implemented yet. Is that right?
Most of the results from the Task Force 1 Navy report was rolled into the Culture of Excellence campaign. If you look at the recommendations, there are words like explore, review, and then the Navy took a look at it and they decided what they wanted to use, what they could help to build warfighters. And so basically the Culture of Excellence, which is about warfighters and the foundation, is what's left over now of the Task Force 1 effort.
Okay. On page 40 of that, you recommend that we consider the use of diversity stamps on minority applications. What is a diversity stamp?
Actually, that was from before. There used to be a case of diversity stamps. I'm not sure if that was the exact recommendation. I don't have it in front of me right now. So. Okay.
I guess the idea then of whether it's in there, I want to make sure I understand if it is the idea, what is the thinking behind a diversity stamp?
So, Senator, I will share with you that I'm reminded of the words "e pluribus unum," out of many one. That's who we are. We're a nation of immigrants. We're a nation of people serving together. There's so many of us today who are looking for opportunity to serve, and they want to serve our nation and do what's best for all of us. And so I think, again, the Navy was looking at a way to find out who people were. To be quite honestly, after 2 years in Carrier Strike Group Command, I was asked to lead this effort. I did not ask for it. I wanted to do it. But I think I was selected to do it because of my character, my reputation, my professional.
Well, listen, I admire your career, and I really do thank you for your service. My concern is, and this is not the first time I've asked on this kind of topic when people come before and have been, their name has been associated with some of these ideas. I do think it's incredibly divisive, right? To be, whether it's a quota or it's just dividing the room by immutable characteristics. I just don't think it has anything to do, or it has no place in our military. I really don't. And I do think we should be active in reaching out to, a broad group of people to serve. I don't disagree with that at all. But, when there's things like recommendation 5.4, which is to counter hate speech, who decides, who's the arbiter of what's hate speech in this recommendation?
That is decided by the Uniform Code of Military Justice.
Okay. Would referring to white people as bubbas be hate speech?
I don't know about that.
Well, that's part of the problem. I mean, yeah. Derek Chollet, who's President Biden's nominee to be Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, that's what he said in 2020. So I don't know, is he disqualified? Is that hate speech or not hate speech? So this is what I'm getting at. Like, I don't understand what a lot of these terms even mean, and certainly not how they would be applied. And, you know, you authored this report, so I'm honestly asking for some explanations about how this would actually work.
Again, I think, Senator, the Navy took the report, they looked at it, and they'll decide how they want to go forward with it. As I said before, if anything out of it, they wrote it to the Culture of Excellence 2.0 to look at how to build warfighters.
Okay, well, we may follow up with some additional questions on this, because I don't know what a quality assurance check means. I don't, like, anyway, I appreciate your service. There's just a lot of questions about this report that I have, which I hope you can appreciate. I'm not alone in this. I think we need to do everything we can to make sure, to ensure that our armed services and our military is the great meritocracy it should be. And my concern is that you start dividing people up, or you know, this obsession with race is not good for us. It's certainly not. I don't think gets us further down the road. I think it's hurting recruiting. I firmly believe that. So I appreciate your time here today.
Senator.
Thank you, Senator Schmidt. Senator Sullivan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and gentlemen, congratulations on your nomination, both of you and your families as well. So appreciate families being here, being supportive. As I told my wife and daughters, you know, you might not be wearing the uniform, but you're serving. Sometimes harder job than it is for the men and women wearing the uniform. So thank you. General, I want to go into a little bit follow-up on our conversation yesterday in my office. I actually really appreciated that. I thought it was a really good meeting. But I want to begin with this, just maybe a little bit of lessons learned from this latest Air Guard initiative on the PEC leveling, as they called it. My own view is that there was a lot of mistakes that happened, and I want to get your commitment to make sure that you work with this committee and my office and me directly to make sure those mistakes don't happen again. The biggest mistake was the Guard at the highest levels didn't check in with the Joint Force on, is this initiative we're undertaking going to impact the readiness of the Joint Force? That's number one. Number two, didn't really kind of, at least from as far as I can tell, didn't check in with the committee. And then number three, particularly as it relates to the great state of Alaska and our incredible guardsmen there, didn't check in with the NORTHCOM commander, ALCOM commander, saying, hey, is this initiative going to impact what these men and women do? So what's your thought on that? We had a good discussion, and can you commit to me to make sure that the issues we talked about yesterday don't happen again? It was a big mistake, and you know, a lot of young men and women were making decisions in my state who had served in the military for a long time to essentially get out. Not good. So can you comment on that and make that commitment to me, sir?
Senator, I can make that commitment to you. Communication, transparency, I think, is the hallmark to make sure that we get out to all the stakeholders and understand points of view from each side, and then we need to communicate that up and back and make sure that we understand any of the implications like you talked about. So you have my commitment, if confirmed, to review this in whole and to make sure that I communicate back to this committee as required.
And to check in with the Joint Force, the active duty force, correct?
Yeah, absolutely, Senator. And that's what I meant by all the stakeholders. So I'm talking
Okay.
about combatant commands, MAGCOMs, the Air Force.
Good. Did you hear what happened yesterday in the NORAD region of Alaska last night?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I was on my systems and talking back and forth with General Moore.
Okay, good. Just for the chairman's knowledge and this committee's knowledge, we had another Russian Bear bomber incursion into the Alaska AIDs last night. This is in addition to on July 24th, we had a joint Chinese-Russian strategic bomber task force entered the Alaska AIDs. That's the first time anywhere in American airspace ever that's happened. That's an escalation between our two biggest adversaries. Last August, we had a joint Chinese-Russian naval task force of 12 ships. Admiral, I'm sure you're aware of this, off the coast of Alaska. We already had a 3-ship Chinese naval task force this summer, Russians naval task force this summer, and of course the spy balloons that were shot down February 10th of last year. The reason I'm mentioning that, General, is what unit made it happen that our joint force, both naval but in particularly air assets, could go intercept these Russian and Chinese bombers and send them back to their communist countries and tell them, hey, stay out of our ADAs, or maybe you'll get shot down next time? What unit made that happen?
Sir, that'd be the 168th up at Eielson with their KC-135s.
And what kind of unit is that?
It's an Air National Guard unit, sir.
Right. So some of the most important missions that are happening in the world today, front lines with great power competition in Alaska, are being, there's no way that mission could have happened without the Air National Guard, correct?
That's correct, sir.
The previous NORTHCOM commander mentioned that these Guard member units were operating not at like varsity football, not at varsity college football, but at pro Super Bowl level. That's how good they were in all of these missions that I just mentioned. Would you agree with that?
Senators, I'm very proud of all the service members in the Air National Guard, and the Army National Guard, and the active forces that continue to do this great power competition to make sure we're always ready and always there. Yes, Senator.
You can just say they were operating Super Bowl. You're not. No one's gonna hit you up for that one. Wouldn't you agree they were?
Oh,
100%. I mean, look at their missions. Really, really important.
Senator, I've flown up in Alaska. I've been up there multiple times. I was just there last time in December. And yes, you have an incredible airman up in Alaska in the 176 and the 168th.
Let me conclude, Mr. Chairman, with just one final question. It's not really a question. It's more of a gift to the 2 nominees. I was just in Korea on a CODEL. By the way, I want to compliment the president of Korea, President Yoon. Whenever I've met with him, the number one thing he does, I'm kind of a Korean War history buff, the number one thing he does is he always highlights the heroic actions of American Korean War veterans who saved their country, which they did. Americans know the history of the Korean War. You know, it's always called the Forgotten War. I hate that phrase because it's kind of a pejorative phrase. The president of Korea doesn't forget about it, right? Our service members saved that country, and he acknowledges that every time. I want to thank President Yoon again for his acknowledgement of our Korean War veterans. Many, we don't have a lot left. I have a book that one of my favorite books is called This Kind of War. Have either of you read it? Have you read it, General?
No, sir.
Have you read it, Admiral?
Yes, sir.
You have? I'm going to give you a copy anyways. I always give this to our nominees. The reason I do, this is a really good book. It's about the Korean War. Most of your peers at the 4-star level, General, will have read it. And what it describes, though, it describes America. World War II, at the end of World War II, we had the fiercest, most lethal military in the history of the world, literally. That's not an exaggeration. By 1950, we had a military that couldn't stop a peasant army from invading South Korea. And it goes into why we lacked readiness. It was uniform and civilian leaders in our military who made horrible decisions. And in the summer of 1950, thousands of young Americans, mostly soldiers, paid the ultimate sacrifice because the leadership of our country at the highest levels of DOD failed. So I'm going to give this to both of you. I highly recommend you read it. And Admiral, you might want to skim it or just put it on your bookshelf. But congratulations to both of you. And these are really important positions. And I'm going to follow up with some questions for the record for both of you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Sullivan. Gentlemen, thank you for your testimony. I look forward to your confirmations, and we'll try to do it with some diligence and speed. Thank you very much, and thank you, families, also.
Thank you, Chairman.
Chairman.
Hearing is adjourned.